Shop.
Oh, is that the? Oh, yeah, that's really good.
That was good.
I was not looking forward to this show,
No.
but
Why are we not looking forward to it?
I don't like this album very much.
I don't know what's wrong with you, because it's a brilliant album.
It is. I've fallen in love with it a bit this week, and I think I know why. I think I know,
why you didn't like it?
Yeah, I think there are two things, and we'll talk about them a bit more later on. But the first thing is, I liked Metallica's thrash era, and this just wasn't that. But also, this was like 91, wasn't it?
Yes.
And then 1990, 91, there were so many like mega records that came out from bands that I just loved.
Yeah. Was that the Nevermind year as well?
Nevermind came out that year. But there were so many really big records that came out that year from thrash bands. And Death as well. Death was getting really big. Like you had like Obituary doing stuff. Exodus were doing stuff.
And you were really into that.
I
weren't
loved
you?
it. Yeah, Anthrax did. I think Sound of White Noise. There were some just massive records. And this to me was just. It was really weird. It was
like the pop album.
I think there are a couple of bits that upset me. One is that my non-metal friends liked it.
Your mainstream friends.
My mainstream friends were like, "Oh yeah, I love this." Is the best, and they were all walking around school with their Metallica t-shirts on.
Oh no, I see.
And that
I
really
understand entirely.
That upset me huge. I was like, no, this is mine.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? This is mine.
Yeah.
And my nerdy friends that you've been bullying and beating up for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
You don't get to like this.
Yes.
That upset me massively. And then these other massive albums that were around, and I think it just turned me off a little bit. But I will say this week just gone, I kind of thought, I know we're going to do this, and I'm going to do what we always do, right? I'm going to listen to it. I'm going to dive into it. I'm going to read about it. I'm going to get really stuck in.
You've done sheets.
But yeah, I've done a sheet. But I really like it.
Yeah.
It's really got under my skin this week. The first couple of listens to it, I was just like, no, I know why I don't like this now.
Yeah.
It's a bit sugary sweet. It's a bit slow. It's a bit, a bit ploddy. But yeah, the more I've kind of listened to it and spent time with it, it's like this really heavy in places, and the production's exquisite, and you get to hear Jason Newsted's bass, which I think is really excellent. And for as much as everyone gives Lars a hard time, the drumming is fantastic.
Yeah.
Really good. And the drum sound is brilliant.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, no, I there are bits that are a bit slow. Like Nothing Else Matters is not a song I would ever listen to.
No.
Hoping I would just never, ever think, oh, do you know what? I really want to listen to Nothing Else Matters.
Yeah.
Elton John said it was the best song in the world ever.
Yeah.
It was one of the greatest songs ever written.
He did, didn't he? Yeah.
He did. And
he loves his music, doesn't he, Elton John?
He does, yeah. What was fascinating is there's a ton of stuff on this record that I did really like Holier Than Thou.
Yeah.
Really fell for that. And Enter Sandman.
Yeah.
I just thought
people, because it's such a standard.
Yeah.
Enter Sandman's one of these songs where you kind of overlook it a little bit because it is such a standard.
Yeah.
And it's not until you just have a minute and go, hang on, let's listen to that again. And you just go, it's a banger, isn't it? That's
brilliant.
That's like one of the best all-time riffs,
I just think it's amazing.
For me, this is a riffy album.
It is.
I think riffs all over it.
You're right, it is. But I think we were... I gave Bob Rock a really hard time over the years for this album, mostly because I didn't like it, and I didn't like anything that followed. Right, so I didn't like this, I didn't like Load, didn't like Reload, didn't like Saint Anger.
Yeah.
And Bob Rock's involved in all of them. Bob Rock played bass on Saint Anger.
Oh, did he?
Because Jason Newsted just didn't turn up.
Right.
Newsted was just like,
I'm done with you.
I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm not happy about this. So he didn't turn up, and Bob Rock played Jason's parts, right? And so I was like, oh, this is all Bob Rock.
Yeah.
Bob Rock's fault. And I watched the documentary A Year and a Half in the Life of Metallica.
Yeah.
And there's an outtakes part of that DVD. Took a lot of finding. I got it I found it on eBay.
I see. I thought you meant it took a lot of finding in the film. Sorry,
no,
I see what you mean.
No.
Right, okay.
It was just hard to get hold of because it's a DVD. It's a proper DVD.
Yeah, it's not anywhere else. No one's ripped it.
I couldn't find it anywhere. I thought I'm going to have to. And so on Monday, I went and actually found a dude who sold it. Cost me £2.
£2?
More. It cost me £3 in postage. But what I loved about it, so there's two parts. The Year and a Half in the Life of Metallica is all right. It's kind of just the band doing the things. But then there's the outtakes DVD, which is basically them in the studio with Bob
Ah,
And we're
okay.
going to play a clip in a minute because there's bits in there that I had not realised.
To tell you what, they're a band that seems to run on conflict.
Yeah.
They seem to, that's how they power through.
Yeah.
Through like falling out and arguing and that kind of thing.
I think, but it's interesting because like Kirk Hammett is not like that.
No,
Kirk Hammett is so like pacifist. He's high most of the time and just so soft and chilled.
Yeah.
And then you've got Lars, who's really
like
fighty.
a bulldog.
Yeah, really fighty. You know, and then Bob was just kind of in there. Bob was saying no to Lars. We're going to play a clip of that now, okay? Because I hadn't realised how good Bob was
Yes.
for Metallica. Even though the album probably wasn't like the album I wanted.
Yeah.
I think it was. I think Bob was the driver behind most of the good bits that were in that album. So we're going to play a bit now of Bob in the studio arguing with Lars.
There were a couple arguments between Lars, me, and Bob. You know, Bob gave up too easy, though.
Lars, what is your problem?
I don't
The
have
heavy
a problem.
guitars aren't loud enough.
Okay, he walked into dynamics. When they come in, you don't sense that the heavy guitar is coming.
Right,
That
they're
goes
not
up
loud
with
enough.
the rest of the shit.
They're not loud enough. What is the problem?
You could start by taking the...
I don't want to take the other things down because when those things were down, when I heard them, there was nothing there. It
There's
needs
nothing
to be
else
up. Those things need to be up during the shots. It goes bum, bum. It's not bum. Bum. It sounded stupid, so I turned them up because it's the only thing there. It's the only piece of music in those shots besides the drums and the bass. So they turned them up. So the next section has to come in strong. It does come in strong. The only thing that doesn't come in strong is the guitars. James was in the car. Isn't that what it sounded like? Did it sound like Metallica? No, it didn't. It didn't even sound close. The guitars aren't loud enough. I'll let you guys duke it out on this one because frankly I don't give a fuck. I'm tired of arguing.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am.
No, you're not.
You're not tired of arguing.
I'm sick and fucking tired of arguing.
Fighty. Now, you've taken that from a video, and what was interesting that you pointed out was the body language changes.
Yeah, Bob Rock. So
Yeah.
Bob Rock starts off at the beginning, kind of all articulated, saying, "Oh, the guitars have got to be louder." Because Lars is like, "Can we just turn everything off?
Yeah.
except for
Except
me,
the drums.
Yeah, let's have the drums really loud, and let's turn everything else down." And Bob is just like, "And you're an idiot. What are you doing?" But he's really articulate. He's kind of leaning back in his chair. His arms are kind of flowing. He's like, "No, look, there's nothing there. There's no music there. We listened to it in the car. James and I have just driven over here. We listened to it in the car. There's nothing there. We've got to turn the guitars up. That's the song."
Yeah.
And then at the end of it, he just kind of sits forward in his chair
closed up,
and
isn't
he
he?
kind of crosses his arms and he's just like, "No, I'm not doing this anymore." And I love the fact that James is just like, no, this isn't over yet. This isn't over. We've not finished yet.
Yeah.
And it's really, I just think it's really cool. And for all of the grief I gave Bob Rock over the years of ruining Metallica, I think if Bob hadn't been there, the Black Album would have been. I don't think anybody would have liked what have come out.
No,
Do you know what I mean?
no.
I think because if you look at that super dry sound of "And Justice for All," which I quite liked. Right, there's no bass guitar on that album,
Yeah.
but it gives
Because
you
Lars probably said turn it down.
yeah, just turn it on. Apparently he did, didn't he? Apparently that we've talked about that before. Where he went into the producers and just went, "Let's hear it." Then they play it and they go, "The bass is too loud." and then Lars is going, "No, it needs to go down lower." And the producer just went, "Oh," and he just knocked 24 decibels off.
I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? Sometimes as a producer, you've got to stand up to the band a little bit.
But that's what he did. So the engineer just went, "Screw you then." So,
turned it
literally
off.
just like, "All right, you think you're so clever, but
Yeah.
here's the cut with no bass guitars in there."
Yeah.
And Lars was just like, "Yeah, that's perfect." And then that's what went out.
And was it, or was he just sort of saving face? Is that in
I
it?
think so. I think that you know, but what it produced was this like uber dry sounding record.
Yeah.
And do you know what? Actually, when you go back and listen to it, I mean, it's not for everybody, but actually, it's quite a unique sound to it.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Like, I guess like Slayer's records do too. Like they have this kind of unique sound to them, and I don't know. I quite like it. I think it's quite a cool sound. Very drummy, very guitar-y, kind of stabby in places, but very cool. But apparently, off the back of that, very much James wanted to produce something that was, he kind of felt that they'd done the thrash stuff, they'd done the kind of prog stuff, they'd reached the end of that journey, and they wanted to do something different.
And that's what I read about. They had these, 5-6 minute opuses of sort of progressive thrash.
They were big, like 7 and 8 minute.
Yeah.
7 and 8 minute, like prog metal records.
And it felt like they needed to sort of change it a little bit. And the thing is for me, is the Black Album was, it was the opposite for me. It was the album that made me understand Metallica, and everything before that, I was like, oh god, it's a bit naughty. Like, the thing is, my kind of like palette at the time was things like Meatloaf and Bon Jovi, and like really quite produced pop rock.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, like on your sheet that you've put that Bob Rock produced "Keep the Faith." I didn't know that.
Yeah,
and that was one of my favorite albums around that kind of time. And it's very interesting that for me the Black Album was a very kind of comfortable, easy kind of listen for me to understand what Metallica were about. And I actually fell in love with it. I've got memories of sat at my grandparents' house with it on tape.
Oh wow.
And side A, side B and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And just looping it round and showing my granddad, and my granddad just looking at me going, "What? I don't get it, but I really love that you love it."
Yeah.
And it was properly one of them. My granddad was so supportive. And it was like, "I don't get it, it's really noisy, but I understand that it's making you feel really great, and it's making you love the guitar and all of that," because I was just picking up the guitar at the time and stuff like that. And it was that really. It was the discovery of that, and learning to play the riffs, learning to play the songs. The album was quite a big part of my development as a musician, which is bizarre because I wasn't really a Metallica fan, but I love to play the Sandman riff or the Nothing Else Matters like intro, or they were things that I learned to play that really got me to understand the guitar. In fact, the Unforgiven actually, the Unforgiven was the one that really hooked me in, because I love the kind of sort of flamenco style Spanish guitar thing, the spaghetti western thing.
Yeah, that was I say it was really weird, but they'd done bits of that before. There were bits of that, I think, even on like Blackened.
Yeah. There's a bit of one as well.
Yeah. So I think those bits were kind of always there. I think it's James who does that. I think he's always had that. Bit, but I think what Bob did was like, well, we'll slam that at the front. Do you know what I mean? And then really brought it out. And
it was lovely. And again, that was one that I learned. We'll listen to that little bit just now, the spaghetti western thing. Currently doing this new record of the World Form Dead Zones with Riding the Light.
Yeah.
And it's very much got that, it's this.
Wow.
that is, I didn't realise quite how influential, that kind of sound was on us, but it really is.
It's weird, isn't it? Don't you think it's weird, those influences from back in the day? They kind of come out.
Yeah. And writing the riff and the chords for that particular song. Of the World Form Dead Zones, it was like that wasn't a plan, that wasn't a conscious decision to go, I'm going to write something that's like a bit like that. And there's always like the Hank Marvin sort of shadowsy sound that's in it as well.
Of course.
But it's all that kind of gene pool of music where it comes from. It's interesting how, as you say, the sort of influences manifest and come through.
I think that's we've talked about this before on shows in the past, but bands are influenced by their bands before and their peers, right? But I think it's fascinating that when people say, "Oh, metal's dead," or "This is dead," right? It isn't. It just evolves, and then but it evolves into something that you might not like.
Yeah.
You know, but those influences come out in other music, and I love that. I just kind of love that genealogy, if you like, of you know, like Black Sabbath. And we're going to play some clips in a little while of kind of that evolution of Metallica from Kill 'Em All, and then we're going to play some from Master of Puppets, and then from the Black Album. But what I think is fascinating is when you go back to Kill 'Em All, Metallica sounded like Judas Priest and Iron Maiden, and so because that's what they got together. Venom, that's what they got together to play.
Yeah,
they were the covers that Lars and James played when they first got together. And I don't know, I love that whole kind of genealogy side of music. I think it's really cool.
Wow! Let the leather run kicks him out tonight. Got the man of madness when I'm about to scream his life. Below behind, yeah. Inside the rock we never will stop again. In the light, in the light, in the light.
So that was Hit the Lights off Kill 'Em All, the band's first record. Very thrashy, very Iron Maiden-y, very Judas Priesty. The next track is Battery off the greatest Metallica album, which is Master of Puppets. That was Battery. Weirdly, that was about Battery Street, where they used to play a lot. But very cool, very thrashy. And now we are going to play Sad But True off the Black Album. And this is much slower, heavier, production much bigger. But true.
Just like that.
It's so riffy and it's kind of groovy almost, that is, isn't it? Do you know, for like for what was a thrash band before, then they went into that proggy stage.
Yeah.
And then that was just, I mean, I remember listening to that. I remember hearing that at Derby Rock House. So you do the big PA and stuff.
Yeah.
And it was just this whole thing. It kind of moved you. It's like a bow and bum bow. Do you know what I mean? It's just this. It's slow, it's ploddy, the production. Like, imagine if they'd done that with the production of Kill 'Em All.
Yeah, it's
I
crazy,
just don't
isn't it?
think it would have carried. It wouldn't have done the same thing. But with Bob Rock's production, it kind of moves the floor, doesn't it?
The bit that gets me is about that as well is it's that big 90s drum sound straight off the bat. You can hear the Mesa Boogie amps. You can hear, you can hear exactly what the ingredients are that makes up that big thing. And that just became the sound of metal in the 90s, didn't it? I mean, there were so many. That was like, I think people saw that and thought, oh, okay. So they're like, okay, that thrashy stuff, we're not doing that anymore. We're doing this because this sells records.
It was the bits that are interesting for me are, and I'm going to look at my sheet. I've lost my sheet. Where's my sheet? Here's my sheet. So let's have a look at some of the stuff that Bob did. So Bob did Dr. Feelgood with Motley Crue. Yeah. Now, Metallica hated Motley Crue.
Yeah.
There's loads of things in the press about where James particularly was picking fights with them. But they wanted that big sound. And so if you think about Metallica copied Motley Crue for the big compressed, big drum sound, compressors and this, all of this kind of clever stuff that they were doing in the studio to make it sound bigger. But then the Black Album came out and all the metal bands were just like, oh, we can do that too. They're doing that.
Yeah.
We can do that. And then things started to slow down. I think it became okay and really cool to slow stuff down and to be big and heavy. Because if I look at some,
not to be so progressive.
Because simpler.
Like thrash and metal wasn't it? It was very, very progressive.
You're right. It led. I think it led to a whole bunch of influences on the death metal side of the house as well. Because you had like Entombed, who did Clandestine. So Entombed did Left Hand Path.
Yes.
Which we're gonna definitely do Left Hand Path as a record. It's just insanely good. But they did Clandestine after that, and Clandestine was slower and bigger and have much bigger production.
Right.
Tons of albums after this came out just slowed down. The production was bigger, and everyone kind of it's okay to be,
because Metallica okayed it. Bob Rock okayed it.
Everybody, even Slayer. It kind of did Seasons in the Abyss, and there's quite a few records at this time that just slowed a little bit, and just, do you know what I mean? Just kind of got this little bit more consumable, but acceptable. Do you know what I mean? And the more crossover, they enticed a bunch of people in that were probably hard rock fans.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? The Bon Jovis. And all of a sudden, the Black Album's pretty cool. I like that. You know what I mean? And then you have to think, like, at the time you had like Sepultura doing Beneath the Remains and things that were just, and Exodus doing like all out thrash, and Anthrax doing fast thrash stuff that was like, sounded like it was recorded in a large toilet. But it's tinny, reverby, fast. There's no sub bass. There's no bass. There's no real like effort for production, really. These things were, pretty raw and ready, very punky in nature. And then all of a sudden, it's like, okay, well, it's cool to. Metallica created a standard. That's that I always come back to that word. Like, Enter Sandman is a standard. For metal music, it really is. And that whole era of Metallica sort of catapulted them into the stratosphere, really, didn't it? Or it was at least, that beginning stages of being the biggest band in the world. It was
the
huge.
Biggest metal band in the world.
According to my sheet, it sold 16 million copies in the US alone.
It's insane, isn't it? I tell you what it is. It's an album. There's a few albums from that era that you just have to own. In some way, shape, or form.
It's like, you're right. It is. It is like Nevermind.
It's Nevermind. It's Jagged Little Pill. It's, all those different things.
There are some albums that are just, like you say, mainstream, like AC/DC's Black in Black. There are these records that are, and this is one of them. Like it or not, right?
This is it, isn't it?
It is one of those things. 30 million copies worldwide it sold. It's just phenomenal. Singles were Enter Sandman, which reached. This is the Billboard 100 chart in the US. And this amazed me, right? For an album that is so big, and we kind of all, the reverence around it. But Enter Sandman reached number 16. The Unforgiven, 35. Nothing Else Matters, 34.
Wow.
And then it says Wherever I May Roam and Sad But True were both singles.
But doesn't that prove that it wasn't necessarily a singles album?
You're right.
It was the longevity, and that's the interesting thing about this stuff, because for me, some of the longevity stuff is never a number one. I remember like Paranoid Android getting absolutely hammered, as a single, and then OK Computer, everyone's like, oh God, it's a bit weird. And then suddenly everyone's like, it's a standard. It's a standard in that kind of guitar, that 90s guitar world. OK Computer is a really important album. And I think sometimes, although, as you say, the album was really successful as an album, sometimes the songs themselves, it wasn't that world, was it, at the time?
No, you're right. I think OK Computer was really interesting in when...
Oh, we're going to do one on that.
That was a really fascinating one. One thing I did want to call out with this album is that it was analog.
Oh yeah,
so
of course.
It was recorded analog.
Of course it was. Yeah,
it went through a Neve desk. So looking at my sheet and the details, it says analog tape using a Neve 8078 console.
Oh wow!
Which in 90,
I've got that in here.
In 90 or 91, I don't know whether that was normal or not. I'm trying to
it
think
was.
whether...
Yeah, it would have been. Yeah, that era for sure. I mean, I think later on they may have tracked a tape and then digitized for editing.
Right.
But
yeah.
I think
certainly
at that point they were definitely just straight tape.
And the other thing that happened with this album was that they and bizarrely they hadn't done this before. Was Bob Rock made them play the songs together in the studio.
Yes.
So they and this is a great thing on that outtakes, a year and a half of the Life of Metallica DVD. They what they would do is they would all get together, all play the same. One of them, so normally the drums would go through to the master, and the rest would just get binned.
Yeah.
And then they would all go and play over the other pieces.
That works. That works. I've done that before. That works. Yeah.
They'd never done that before. They'd never played together as a band in the studio.
It was always layer.
Yeah. So it was just like in the go, do layer, cut, layer.
I think you can hear it. You can hear it, and it's really interesting. One of the words that you used when we were listening through is how confident they sound
absolutely.
as performers and musicians together. And you definitely get that. And that's really interesting because one of the things between, they've obviously two of the biggest producers in the world who work with Metallica, that being sort of Bob Rock and Rick Rubin. And they've both got very different styles of working. And it's just, I find that fascinating. And you saw something, didn't you, around this?
I did, yeah. There's a lovely clip that we're going to play from Lars talking about working with Bob Rock and Rick Rubin, because if we it's worth looking at the ages. I found this fascinating article which talked about the eras of Metallica, and the albums and things that they'd done, and it kind of defines it as early thrash era, which was Kill 'Em All and Ride the Lightning. But I'm not convinced Ride the Lightning was. Ride the Lightning was a really radically different record to Kill 'Em All. And then classic thrash era, which is Master of Puppets and Injustice. They're prog records. They're not thrash in the. I don't think so. Like we played a bit off Blackened. It's the fastest of that record. The rest of it's pretty. It gets a little bit more sluggy and chuggy. And then mainstream breakthrough era.
Sluggy and chuggy.
and then
Slug chug.
And then it says experimental rock era, Load, Reload, Garage Inc. and S&M. Then it says transitional era, which was St. Anger and Some Kind of Monster. And then return to roots, which is where Rick Rubin comes in with Death Magnetic, Hardwired, and Self-Destruct. So the band had Rick Rubin. The band had. Well, let's look at producers from the beginning, right? So Kill 'Em All was Paul Curcio. And then Ride the Lightning, Master of Puppets, and Injustice were all Flemming Rasmussen.
Wow.
And then Bob Rock came in for the Black Album, Load, Reload, Garage Inc., S&M, and St. Anger, where he played the bass on it because Jason Newsted couldn't be bothered to turn up. I think he just hated it. He really had. He'd really.
I don't think they treated him very well, did they?
No, they weren't kind to Jason. No. But then they wanted to revisit. They wanted to find their roots, recapture their roots.
To ask, just before we do talk about that, are all of those eras tied to producers? How the eras are split up?
No,
not quite. It doesn't quite work like that.
Almost. They're close. They are close.
I just find that interesting that for the different eras of the band,
they are close. But the band wanted to rediscover their roots, so they got a new bassist, Robert Trujillo from Suicidal Tendencies, who's epic. Absolutely. I mean, just. I don't know if there's a band on the planet that you can't say negative stuff about, it's ST.
No, absolutely. And he's the coolest looking guy.
Oh, they're just amazing. His son, have you seen his son?
Yes.
His son plays bass. He went on tour with Korn as a 14-year-old. He's just unreal. I shot them on the Hardwired tour, Metallica, and his son was with them, and he was there, and he was like swinging his bass around his neck and stuff. It was just epic, absolutely epic.
Yeah. I mean, that's the interesting thing, isn't it? Because I suppose for him, like Metallica would have been like his idols, as a metal bass player.
He did. There's a brilliant clip on the St. Anger, Some Kind of Monster documentary, where they're interviewing bassists and they're bringing bassists in from all over the world. And then there's a bit in there where Rob comes in. And they're just like, what do you want to play? And he's like, well, I know Blackened, and I know this and that. And they're like, all right, whatever. And he just plays it. He just rips into it and plays it.
Yeah.
And they're all like, Lars's mouth just hits the floor when they played it. And they do that. And then they're just like, do you know anything else? And he's like, I know all of these. And then just off they go and play. And he's just phenomenal. And you can just see them. They're all just like, he's
the one.
He's our guy. But anyway, back to this. So they did St. Anger, which was a disaster. I think Lars just...
The snare was biscuit tin.
Awful. There's some good riffs in there. There's some good songs in there if you can stomach the production. But anyway, they wanted to rediscover their kind of metal and thrash roots a little bit. So they hired Rob Trujillo, and then they went to Rick Rubin. Now
yeah.
Rick Rubin was Slayer's guy, right?
Yeah,
And he's like radically different producer to Bob. And we found this lovely clip of Lars talking about the difference of working with Bob and Rick that we're going to play, because I think it's just fascinating to hear the difference of approach between these two guys.
You know, working with Rick and getting Rick Rubin involved was, you know, we wanted to just try and do something different and try to have a different guy in there for the process and a different... Rick Rubin is not a musician, and he's not a songwriter, and he's not a technical guy. Rick Rubin is a guy, and he listens to music, and he goes, that's good, that's not good. Think about it like this. It's very much about how you think. Where Bob Rock would sit and go, he'll sit with a guitar and go, why don't you try this chord instead of that chord, or something. Play the riff in F sharp instead of an E. Rick Rubin, I can play less guitar than me, and I can't play guitar. Okay, Rick will sit there and go, you know, play all the songs in E instead of E flat, because James's vocals sound better in E than in E flat. When he sings higher, he sounds more vulnerable. That's what Rick Rubin says. Bob Rock says more like, play the chorus twice at the end, or play it in a different key or something. So he's very much more from a musician's point of view, where Rick is more about feel. Everything to Rick is about how it feels. He closes his eyes, he has his little prayer beads, and he kind of sits there and he like listens to it, and he talks about how it feels. It's very, very different. Rick Rubin is very difficult to figure out. I let Rick and Greg Fiddleman, his kind of guy, his engineer, I let them deal with most. They wanted the record to sound very organic, and they don't use samples, they don't use echoes and reverbs, they don't use gates. It's very much, it's how it sounds, you know, it's very organic. That's Rick Rubin's favorite words, organic. Rick wanted it just to be very kind of in your face, very kind of underproduced. He's not a big, you know, there's not a lot of harmony vocals, and there's not a lot of kind of pretty sound effects and all this crap all over the place. He wants it raw, in your face, loud, and organic. You know, Rick Rubin, they're going to make the best record. I mean, it's the best record that we're capable of.
So what I love about that, there's a brilliant thing. This is in the a year and a half of Metallica, the outtake stuff. But apparently Bob used to like scream and yell at them while they were playing, like really enthusiastic, like
not
go,
like
guys.
an angry thing.
Yeah,
like
go guys, that's the best thing ever. Go for it, give it everything you got, guys. And the band used to like take the mic,
like a cheerleader.
Yeah, So what would happen is the band used to like take the piss back. So when it's all quiet, the band would be just
he's just being enthusiastic.
I know, and they would just rip him to pieces, which I really, really liked. There's a few other odd stories in there as well. I think that Nothing Else Matters was never intended to be a song.
That's fascinating, because it's one of the biggest songs of all time. It's Elton John's favourite.
It is Elton John's favourite, renowned thrash expert. But it was a song that he wrote about missing his girlfriend on tour. And then
amazing, isn't it?
What I love about this, though, is that Lars heard him playing it. Then the band convinced him that it should be on the record.
Yeah, and then took the piss
out of him for writing a love song, which I absolutely adore.
Bands are great.
It's just really funny, isn't it? And then Enter Sandman, Kirk Hammett wrote the riff.
Yeah.
What they did was they all used to write material and riffs and stuff and put them on tape.
Right.
And then all those tapes would go to Lars, and then Lars would pick through it and kind of go, I like this bit, like that, you know, and then they would kind of pull the bits out of it together try and pull the songs together.
It's weird, isn't it? Lars is like the boss.
A little bit, yeah.
Of that. No, in terms of like the person that pulls it all together.
He would be the bully in the gang, wouldn't he? That told you that your hat was stupid. You're not allowed to wear that hat.
No, I can't wear that hat. Yeah.
But what was brilliant about it is they did it, and then Lars goes back to Kurt and goes, this is brilliant. I want to stretch this. I want to do some more with it. It's going to be brilliant. So they did, but there were no lyrics. It was one of the first songs they wrote for the Black Album.
Yeah.
But there were no lyrics to it.
Really?
And then James had this idea. He had a nightmare and said he kind of came up came up with the lyrics thinking about his own childhood nightmares. But it was the song was one of the first.
It didn't
songs.
have anything.
No, and the lyrics came right at the end.
That's fascinating,
isn't it?
Yeah,
So they did the
So
song.
that's totally riff driven.
Yeah, did the song, and it is. It's that riff for Enter Sandman is just. I mean, it's just amazing. Isn't it?
Yeah. It's all time. You know. It's,
And there's a brilliant bit in the doccumentarie where Lars is on the phone talking to Kirk, and he's kind of going, the riff, and it goes like this, and Kirk's like, I can't remember.
Oh my God! One of the greatest riffs of all time.
It's like, can't remember.
Can't remember it, mate. Which one was that again? Yeah.
And he did it, and there's a brilliant bit in there where Kirk talks about a lot of those riffs happening in hotel rooms at 3:00 in the morning.
Wow.
So it's like you'll be there, so I'll be in a hotel room, and then you just get the guitar out and start to do stuff, and I'll record it. And
I can empathise with that though.
And then go to sleep.
Yeah. I can only speak about what when we're writing the low stuff, and we do the same. Like I'll write 10 things, send them to Paddy, and then when he sends them back with like words on and stuff, I've got to relearn them.
Yeah,
because I can't. It was like a stream of consciousness. I can't remember.
So I do this with code sometimes.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me for a sample to do something. This is 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
So and I can vaguely remember the conversation where we had to do it.
Yeah.
And I wrote the code and gave it to them.
And you're just in flow, and then you let go of it.
Yeah, but they gave it. They sent it me back.
Oh right,
this week,
right.
saying that this has stopped working. Blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. And I thought, this is brilliant. When you look at it, oh, this is so good. Who's done this? And then
It's you.
Yeah, it's like, you did it. And I'm like, do you know when you suddenly feel like, God, I'm such an idiot. I'm like, because, I mean, just how would that have felt? Like, so he can remember that conversation we had. I gave him the code. He knows it's my code.
Yeah.
There's nothing in there to say it's my code. I just like literally riffed and just kind of went, well, we did blah, 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 right. And then sent it back to me, and I'm going, this is brilliant. He thought I was joking. He thinks I'm like having a giggle. And aren't I the best coder or the best dev on the planet? And actually, genuinely, I'd forgotten all about it. And I was just thinking, this is so clever.
Yeah.
Oh, anyway.
Yeah.
But
imagine that. Yeah, you've done that. You've done that with Enter Sandman.
Oh,
you get it back and, it's good, isn't it?
Bonkers. The other thing that we wanted to talk about was the spaghetti western influence, and you've talked a little bit about this, and I'm going to say this wrong, but it's the intro of Unforgiven features horn parts that were influenced by Ennio Morricone's spaghetti western soundtracks. The bit that we're going to play a clip in a minute, but one of the bits I love about this is that it says during the recording of the Unforgiven, there was a lot of joking around about whistling the intro part, and Hetfield attempted to whistle the melody as a joke, which lightened the mood, and he would do that constantly. So as things were happening, like you just have James kind of meandering around in the background trying to whistle the melody to the Unforgiven. But which one have you chosen? You've chosen a bit of spaghetti western, haven't you?
Yes, that was there was two little interlude bits, and there's one that's got like a marching thing from The Struggle Within, which is the last track of the album. Right. That's one of my favourite things about this record. Is the it's kind of crazy how they don't do this anymore, but there were always like little bits of music stuck onto other songs in the 90s. That seemed to be a thing. I miss that.
Very Slipknotty.
Yeah, actually, that's true. The interlude, like Clown's interludes and stuff. And I was like, I missed that. I want to do some of that. Like little bits of music at the start.
Like
Oasis did it a lot, didn't they? They had
did,
these little interlude bits on the records, which were like jams, or like they'd throw in a little riff from another song.
I tell you, do you know who did that? Shinedown did an album, Planet Zero.
Right.
And in between the song is about like losing humanity and stuff. It's about a planet where humanity's been lost, and and it's all kind of computer driven and stuff. And in between the songs are these interludes where there's like computer voice talking to you and stuff.
I think
it does.
Brilliant.
It's really it does.
That's coming back, making that happen,
bringing it back. We're going to bring
secret tracks.
Oh, at the end, at the end of the
secret
CD.
Tracks, 30 minutes of gap, and then
thing
pop
is,
the secret track on the end.
So that's a format thing. We were talking about this a while back, but that's a format thing because you can't have secret tracks on a vinyl record because you can see it. Right? You literally put it on. And you're like, I can see.
So I've just moved that to there.
I can see it there. There's a thing there and I can see it, right? So that's easy. Same with magnetic cassette, which I like a lot. You can see it. You're like, I can see that there's more tape,
stuff.
right? They wouldn't have done tape if there wasn't something there. So you just fast forward it. CD, on the other hand, that's a bit trickier, isn't it? So that was that. I thought that's where it's a kind of the format thing.
I don't like it now. I think No, digital's ruined everything.
Ruined everything.
Yes, I want secret tracks back, and I want little interlude bits on my records.
I do think interludes are very nice. Do you know, I might have mentioned this in the past, but I'm 50 this year.
50.
Yeah, I'm 50, and I'm buying myself a record player for my 50th birthday.
Yeah.
And I'm excited.
Yeah, it's good.
I've bought records.
Yeah.
Not got a record player yet. So I've got about another month or so. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
So expect to see on our socials just lots of pictures of me playing vinyl. But yeah, I'm excited for that.
I can imagine your happy little face. When
you should imagine my happy
when you're doing
little face.
the ritual of the wiping of the vinyl. You know what I mean? You're going to love that.
Blowing it.
Yeah.
And all of that stuff.
Yeah,
I'll have an ultrasonic cleaner. My friend's got an ultrasonic cleaner.
Really?
Yeah. He often takes a video of him cleaning old records. And I like that. Before you play these clips, I want to remind you of something. Do you know what the favourite and least favourite tracks off this album are?
Oh, no, I don't know.
The most popular few is like Enter Sandman, Unforgiven, Nothing Else Matters, Wherever I May Roam, and Sad But True.
Right.
The rest are kind of all in the middle, and the least favourite is The Struggle Within.
Ah, that's interesting, because I like that one. But Struggle Within is most like the old thrashy stuff.
I like it as well.
Yeah.
Like,
It's quite, so I'm going to play the intro with that.
Yeah.
Because it's got that marching kind of like Western thing. In fact, both of these have in a way. And then the other one has got the riff from America, from West Side Story, that they turned into a thing at the start of not Sad But True, Don't Tread on Me.
Yeah.
And I just like that. I like that. They were obviously having fun in the studio. They were mucking about. Oh, doesn't that sound like this? And then they played that, and then it ends up on the track.
Do you know what's just hit me? Didn't Bon Jovi go through a Western phase?
Yeah, absolutely.
Was that rated
Blaze of Glory.
Was that around this time? Or?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, Blaze of Glory.
I wonder what was happening in the world that made them want to be cowboy.
Everyone wanted to be in the desert.
Everybody wants to be a cowboy.
Yeah. Dry County.
Dead or alive.
Dead or Alive. Yeah, all those things. Yeah.
I don't know whether he says stale horse or steel horse. Do you know when he says I'm on? I don't know. What does that? I don't know. And I'm not going to look it up.
No, don't look it up. You'll ruin it.
It will ruin the magic. And like we should do one on misheard lyrics.
Yeah.
So many of those. But it's like Bon Jovi. Everyone knows you're born knowing the lyrics.
Yeah.
Except for whether it's a steel horse or a stale horse.
Stale horse.
You don't know.
Yeah.
You just sing whatever. Sing whatever you like.
Right. I'm going to play these little bits.
Super.
Every time I hear the start of that, the drums, you know, it makes me want to go into that 21st Century Fox, whatever it is.
Oh, yeah.
It's very much like that. And then the end of it, where it goes into the feedback, that's like the start of the Gun record, Word Up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I love Word Up. I think, covers.
Yeah.
Metallica did a cover of Whiskey in the Jar.
That was on Garage Inc., wasn't it?
And Bread Fan.
Yes.
And I love them. I think Metallica did brilliant jobs with those covers.
Better jobs than the originals.
I think,
sort of,
and Gun, it made me think, because like Gun's Word Up was better.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But I think it's incredibly rare.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? I think covers in general, if you're a band and you're thinking of doing a cover, just don't do it. Don't do it. Or do it and then leave it a year and then come back and listen to it and then delete it, right? Because I think it'll probably be crap. But occasionally they just the covers are just brilliant. Like Bread Fan, I think it's just massive. The Metallica cover, it's just absolutely epic. Love it.
Right, and then the next little clip is that America thing from Don't Tread on Me. So let's just have a listen to that.
Don't tread on me.
Now we're getting to the point where we've got to finish it, and I never want to finish them because I'm just, because you're in and you want to just do it forever because it's so good.
We should do. I have on my sheet. I'm just trying to find it, so just pad for a minute. I got a load of reviews from. I got a load of reviews which I thought was interesting. So Rolling Stone said Metallica's Black Album is a landmark in heavy metal. It's filled with powerful riffs, intense lyrics, showcasing the band's musical evolution. And I think they nailed that.
Yeah.
And then it's got here, it says, All Music said the Black Album is a testament to Metallica's ability to blend heaviness with accessibility, resulting in an album that is both commercially successful and critically acclaimed. Entertainment Weekly said Metallica's self-titled effort is a triumph, an album that manages to be both fiercely aggressive and wildly appealing. And then the negative reviews. The Village Voice said, while the production quality is high, Metallica's Black Album represents a sellout to the mainstream, lacking the raw intensity that defines their earlier
That's an
work.
interesting negative nastiness, isn't it?
NME.
Yeah.
The Black Album may have brought Metallica's commercial success, but it sacrificed the band's authentic roots for a more polished, radio-friendly sound. And Spin said, despite its success, the album feels overproduced and lacks the edge that Metallica's early albums had. It is safe, commercial, and doesn't take any risks.
See, that's interesting because that's like both sides of how you felt about the album at different times, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think I agree.
Whereas
But I agree with all of those. I think they're all right.
Whereas I get defensive about musicians.
Yeah,
and I always have this, like, leave them alone.
Yeah,
Let them do what they want. Let them do music. Stop trying to judge everybody. Stop it.
Stop trying to grade everything.
Yeah, stop it.
But I think, I think it's, but you're not.
It's music. Yeah, for me, music's much more vital than that.
Yeah, but you're not.
Than just a review.
You're not like writing a review about a cup of tea. It's
Yes.
not like something
yeah.
that's. It's not something that you can say. Oh, it was a nice cup of tea, or it wasn't a nice cup of tea.
Yeah.
It's
There's so like a spectrum of perspective, isn't there?
I mean, for example, for me, like Holier Than Thou, I really, really liked it. I've fallen in love with Enter Sandman, Sad But True, Don't Tread on Me.
Yeah.
I just love all of this stuff. I think it's absolutely The Unforgiven. Even
Yeah,
I really like
yeah.
that. Nothing Else Matters. I could delete it from the album and I wouldn't care.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, but I think it's a personal thing for the musicians that create it, and it's a personal relationship you have with the album as a listener to it. And you don't have to like all of the bits of all of the albums. You know, I think it's perfectly fine for you to really love bits of an album, but not necessarily all of it. And that doesn't mean it's bad. It doesn't mean you don't like. And Nothing Else Matters is the like behind Enter Sandman. Nothing Else Matters is the most highly voted fan favorite off the album. You know, so clearly it's super.
Someone likes it somewhere.
Yeah, super. Elton John mostly. He just sits at home streaming Nothing Else Matters.
20 million streams a month.
Yeah.
And it's just Elton John with 25 iPads on loop.
Just telling everybody that comes to his house. He invites everyone for dinner and forces them to listen to Nothing Else Matters. So if you go to Elton John's house, that's what
you're listening to.
Just a massive piano.
Yeah.
Red glasses, and then he gives you like pink gin, fizzy gin, and then forces you to listen to Nothing Else Matters. I think that would be excellent. But I think on balance, I mean, I'm gonna read some albums. Like almost all of these albums, I think I could do a special. I think we could do a show on, right?
Yeah.
They were all released around the same time.
Right.
So you had Slayer, Seasons in the Abyss, in 1990. Megadeth's Rust in Peace, 1990. Anthrax, Persistence of Time, 1990. Exodus, Impact is Imminent, 1990. Testament, Souls of Black, 1990. They're all just
massive standards, aren't they?
Massive
yeah,
thrash metal standards. They're just absolutely, I mean, just incredible. All around the same time as this.
Yeah.
Then you had, sort of on the death metal side, you had Death with Human in 91. Morbid Angel released Blessed Are the Sick. Had that on vinyl. That was one of the first vinyls I ever bought, I think that was. Obituary, Cause of Death in 1990. Cannibal Corpse, Butchered at Birth, 91.
Yeah.
Entombed with Clandestine in 1991. This time for music, for metal music, was just
huge, wasn't it?
Just unreal. And I think this album, like, as good as everything that I've just read out was, I mean, and there are some just absolutely monumental records in there.
Yeah.
The Black Album just kind of seemed to elevate itself a little bit.
Yeah.
It reminds me a little of what The Prodigy did with The Fat of the Land.
Yeah.
They had this crossover success where the dance kids and the kids that went to clubs and the metal kids. I used to go home and listen to this while I was playing Quake online.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And I loved it. It was just brilliant. And I was listening to metal all the time.
Yep.
But I loved Fat of the Land.
Yeah,
it was just massive. And I think the Black Album kind of does that between like metal in the mainstream, and it just elevates. You know, as I look at some of these albums, like Slayer, Seasons in the Abyss, mainstream friends not going to listen to them.
No.
Megadeth, Rust in Peace.
Yeah.
Verging on it in places, but no, right? Anthrax, no. Exodus, no. Testament, no. I mean, you were not going to find your mainstream friends that bullied you listening to any of those.
Yeah.
But they all had Metallica t-shirts.
Yeah.
And they all knew the words to Nothing Else Matters.
Yeah.
And, you know, this album, it crossed over. It was this thing, this beast of a thing that came out from the kind of the troughs of metal.
Yeah.
And made it into mainstream. Just brilliant. Anyway, thank you.
Fair play to him.
This has been brilliant. I've really enjoyed doing this one.
Yeah, this is great. We're going to do more of these every week-ish. No, every week. Let's commit.
Every week. And please share us with your friends.
Yeah.
It'd be great for us to, obviously, we're still building the show, obviously. And so, yeah, if you like this, please tell your friends about us.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah. And if you want to comment, you can comment.
Do that as well. Yeah, we love that.
We
have a
question.
Chat. It's mostly me and Paul chatting about stuff. So if people would like to join in, that would be mega. I know lots of people message me privately.
Yeah.
But it'd be great to have some more broad discussions about this stuff. I think hopefully this album is this one might be the one that everybody wants to comment on.
Yeah.
Everyone's got an opinion on the Black Album.
Yeah.
Shall we do one?
Do one.
Let's do one.
To that.
See you next week.